Hi, I'm Liv and welcome back to the Book Nook. Hey guys, so for today's video, Vlogmas Day 22, all the twos 22, two little ducks, quack quack 22. What? I am doing my books of the second half of 2017, so July to December. I will link in the description below my books of the year for the first part of 2012, January to June, so that you can have a little perusal of that if you wish. And then in the week between Christmas and New Year's, I will be doing my books of the year proper. I think I may have mentioned that it's felt like a weaker second half of the year reading-wise this year, but actually, looking back on the books that I've read in the second half to pick sort of my favourites of the second half, it's actually been a bit stronger than I thought. But more than that, it seems that the middle portion of the year was really, really strong, because a lot of the ones that were in my first half of the year best books were kind of late first half, and a lot of the ones in my best of the second year stack, which is here, were in the early second half, so the middle bit, which I thought was quite interesting. Not that it really means anything, but yeah, so let's crack on. So these are my favourite books of the second half of 2017. There are 7 here. I've tried to keep it at around 7. There were a couple of others that I could have put in as well, but I have been restrained. Now, I haven't consciously kept it to fiction, but the 7 books that I've picked all just happen to be fictitious. And I think that's because although I have read some really good non-fiction books in Non-Fiction November, Non-Fiction November was kind of like its own little thing. And, like, I will do a best non-fiction book when I do my books of the year, but my books of the year for the second half have all been, if I think of my favourite books I've read in July to December, they're all fiction. So, the first one is Solar Bones by McCormack. This book was an experience. It was breathtaking, it's intense, it's hymnal, it's gorgeously inventive with language and with structure and with what it does and how it does it. It's essentially a story about a man who is thinking back on his life as he is dead. Which, if you fancy watching my video where I reviewed this one a little bit more in depth, I still toyed with whether or not I said he's dead, because the Tramp Press edition of the book says that he's dead on the blurb, but this Canongate edition does not. So, sorry if I have spoiled it, but I think enough time passed that I can say that. But yeah, this book just blew me away. It's Joycean in its writing. It reminded me also sort of Sarah Moss of Amy McBride. It just has this scintillating quality. It is an intense one. It's not a sort of curl-up, cosy read, but it is something you get lost in, and once you get your head around the style, because it's written in one sentence, once you get your head around that and the style of it, you sort of learn how to read this book. It is so astonishing and so entirely worth it. So, Solar Bones by McCormack, definitely on my top books of 2017 in general, and possibly one now, thinking about it, since I've read it, one that might go onto my favourite books of all time, possibly. I think, maybe. Second one is one that I wasn't entirely sure whether it was going to make this list, but I thought, actually, you know what, I did love it for many reasons, and that is Tom Hanks' Uncommon Type, his collection of short stories that are surrounding typewriters and their sort of American society, very American sensibilities in there, but he's just got a warmth and a humour to him. Tom Hanks, just a lovely bloke, lovely stories, but not ones that all shy away from, they're not sort of like overtly lovely, they're not mushy. Some of them have got a bit of bite to them. And the conceit that they all mention typewriters in some form or another. I'm a huge typewriter nerd. Well, not a huge typewriter nerd, I'm saying that right next to a Tom Hanks book. He is a huge typewriter nerd. I'm like a mini typewriter nerd. But for me, it was something that as soon as I'd heard this book was happening, I was so excited about, and I gobbled it up, and I just absolutely loved this. As a collection of short stories, it's just got something in there for everybody. There's sort of warmth, humour, as I say, then there's slightly more fantastical ones and almost slightly sci-fi type things, and there's historical things in there. So really would urge you to check this one out. I absolutely loved this. There was just something about it that was, this was a warming book. And I really love the cover as well, the cover design. Next up on my best books of the second half of the year is a book that is going to be tricky to talk about in a way, because I'm still not sure how to talk about it, and that is My Absolute Darling by Gabriel Talents. This is the proof version. Now, I say I'm not sure how to talk about this one because I know it has garnered probably as much controversy in a way as it has praise, and there's been a lot of talk about, you know, the fact that it's a man writing this story about a young girl in a abusive relationship with her father. But there's just something about it that I would thoroughly recommend you listen to what Alice Slater has to say about this book on What Page You On Podcasts Books of the Year Roundup, because again, it was one of her books of the year, and it was one that I read because she'd read it and had said how sort of experiential it was and difficult to talk about and hard to say it's a book you love, but it's got something about it. So it had been on my pile of things to read, and she'd said this about this book, so I picked it up and read it, and I know there was just sort of like a lot of breathless kind of Twitter conversations between me and Alice going, what? As I said in my wrap-up for this one, it's a book that for the first third of it, I think, well for me anyway, first quarter to a third, you're sort of holding it at arm's length, trying to adjust to the kind of the brutality in it and the discomfort, and trying to think, oh, am I gonna carry on with this? Is this really what I want to spend my time reading about? And then you're like, well actually, there's an incredible character in Turtle, and I know there's been, again, a fair bit of talk about the characterisation of her, but for me, there was something about her that was just so... It's not a perfect book, I will say that, and a lot of the criticisms that have been levelled at it, one that really sticks out, aside from the sort of content, is the kind of over-reliance on description of nature and what's happening, and it's very sort of flowery and descriptive to the point where, and occasionally it's a little bit OTT and you're like, okay, we get it, we're outdoors. And the repetition of sort of guns and cleaning of guns, I get that it's meant to evoke this sense of, you know, they are familiar with guns and they know how to use guns, and that makes it feel very American, but also it makes it feel more American than American because, of course, Turtle's father has got this kind of, like, end-of-days mentality, so it's very ingrained that they know how to use guns. But after about, you know, the 12th time of learning how to clean guns, I felt like I could clean a gun, and I've never been in the same room as a gun. So it's not a perfect book, and it's not one for the faint-hearted. It's not one to go into thinking, oh, well, this'll be a cosy kind of no. And it's not like one of those kind of misery-lit type books, I think, that we're always sort of posited more at female readers who like sort of sad true lives and stuff. Obviously it's fiction, but just because it's about, you know, a girl in a really abusive relationship with her father, there's also sort of elements of a thriller towards the end of it, and the way it picks up the pace and really action. I just think it's a lot of books in one. And for me, it is something that you sit and you read and you just feel like you've been smacked over the head with a sledgehammer and punched in the heart. And it's so kind of breathtaking for that I think this couldn't not be in my books of the year, really, because it's one that had such an impact and one that is going to stay with me. And now for something completely different, book number 3 in my books of the year, Tom Gauld's Baking with Kafka. It's no secret that I love Tom Gauld and I love his illustrations, and I've now got my New Yorker cover in a frame. Yeah. I've legitimately been trying to track down a copy of that issue of the New Yorker, and I found one online, but it's going to cost me like 20 quid to get it from America, and I'm tempted. And I also really want a copy of the new Tom Gauld cover for New Yorker, which was not the most recent issue, but the one before that, which is like a Christmas tree one, and you've got a woman and her kids stood at a train platform with their Christmas tree, and the train's going past, and it's full of Christmas trees, and oh my god, I want it. So, but you can't seem to get single issues anywhere in the UK. I have just signed up for a 12-week subscription thing for like I think it was like £6.20 or something like that, because Sophie over at Portal in the Pages mentioned that the New Yorker were doing like a holiday offer thing, and I was like, ooh! So I've got myself that subscription as well, but I can't figure out a way to get past issues, and I just love a copy of the fall books cover, which was October the 20th, 2014, and the one which, as I say, was a couple of weeks ago, not the most recent, but the one before that issue of New Yorker, which is another Tom Gauld illustration. So the search continues for those. But in the meantime, Baking with Kafka. This is the perfect gift. Like, I know I'm doing this very late in time for Christmas, and I'm sorry I didn't end up doing a Christmas gift guiding one. It just did not work. But this is the perfect gift for book lovers at Christmas, and I just absolutely love it. It's a collection of some of Tom Gauld's comic strips that have basically all got books in common, books and reading, and it's just absolutely wonderful. It's one that I'm going to go back to again and again as a kind of comfort read. I've already you know, since I've read it. It's one that's on my sort of graphic novel shelf, which is coincidentally right next to me. So it's one that I can always sort of pick up, and a few times since I've read it, I have just picked it up, had a leaf through and read some of my favourite ones again, just to sort of cheer me up after a long day. Or, you know, if I haven't quite got the energy or the wherewithal to sit and read a novel, but I just want something bookish, this is just an absolute treat. So it's definitely one of my books of the year, and if you haven't got a copy, I think you just need one. So ask someone to get it for you for Christmas, very last minute. Then my 5th book of the year is one that I was surprised, in a way, myself, that it's made it onto this list, because I never thought of myself as such a huge fan of the original trilogy, but rereading them this year before this new one came out, obviously you already know what I'm talking about now from this, but The Book of Dust by Phillip Pullman, Part 1, La Belle Sauvage. I just bloody loved this. I really did. I think part of why I love this book is the fact that I had the day off when it came out, so I literally just got to spend the day with this book and do nothing else, and it was brilliant. But it's just an absolutely captivating story. It's just a look at the bear, look at the bear. It's just peak Pullman. You've got amazing characters. Some people have sort of said it's not got much of a story. Well, it doesn't, because the story is there's a flood and they've got to escape it, and I think that's story enough, and it packs a lot in there, and it does a hell of a lot, and I just think it's a fantastic yarn. It's a brilliant storytelling book, and you get sort of hints and things about other characters that you already know from the original trilogy, and sort of like little Easter eggs in there, but then there's also a whole other world, and as I said in my wrap-up reviewy thing for when I read this, I'm kind of, in a way, gutted that the next 2 parts of The Book of Dust are going to pick up after the original trilogy, because I want what happens in between this and his Dark Materials. So hey, Phil, if you finish those and you're looking for something to do, the important thing to state with this as well, I think, is that you don't have to have read his Dark Materials. You really don't. I do think the kind of the right way round to read it is his Dark Materials, then this one, just because I think this one feels richer for that. But it really doesn't make a difference, I think, because a lot of the references that in this one you'll be going, oh yeah, you'll just have that the other way around. Happy days. So yeah, Book of Dust by Phillip Pullman, Part 1, La Belle Sauvage, and I do really love this edition. Then book 6 on my books of the year for the second half of 2012 is another one that has surprised me. I'd say these are all more slightly surprising for me, but when I've actually thought back and looked at what I read in the second half, I thought, oh yeah, and reflected on them. But this one particularly, Thornhill by Pam Smy, scared the living bejesus out of me, because I'm a wuss, and also because it's just really bloody well done. But I think this has opened my eyes to what a graphic novel can do and to what this kind of form can do. Plus it's just a beautifully crafted thing. The fact that Pam has done the illustrations and the story herself I think speaks to a true sort of craftsmanship and a true, it makes it sound like everyone else isn't a true craftsman, but you get what I mean. Like a real love for the story and creating this world, you know, she's done it all. And I just think it's an utterly beautiful thing. As I say, the story is really spooky, but at the same time, it is also in there are elements of being quite touching, and quite fierce and quite understanding of sort of a lot of things in there. So I absolutely loved this one. I was really surprised. Everyone I talk to now, I'm saying like, oh, it scared the bejesus out of me, but I loved it. And I did. Because it scared the bejesus out of me. If I read it and was a bit like, meh, I wouldn't be talking about this book at all. Again, I don't think. But the fact that it had such an impact on me because of the power of it, that's why it's on this list. Then the last one, number 7. So probably would have been more of a surprise a few weeks ago if I haven't been banging on about this one ever since I read it. I say read it, I haven't finished. I'm now only just shy of halfway, I think. I haven't updated my Goodreads page count in a little while. And that is Nigel Slater's The Christmas Chronicles. Thank you, Alice Slater, from the bottom of my heart for tangentially opening my eyes to the wonder that is this book. Thank you. Thank you. Honestly, I know I've mentioned it in loads of videos now, but this has been like an experience for me. Look how many post-its! So many recipes picked out in there that I want to try, but also just passages of incredible writing. So cozy, so amazing, so beautiful, so evocative, so different from anything that I would have ever read before. Just such a surprise to me, blindsided me, but in a beautiful way. The beautiful blindslide that is The Christmas Chronicles for me. So I couldn't not put it on this list, really. So yeah, that is my books of the second half of 2017. I have tried not to let myself get too worked up about this one. I think I said in the last one that I'd spent so long sort of thinking about how many was I allowed, how many did I have to do, how many could I do, what one should I choose, will this be written in stone forevermore because it's on the internet. I just got so worked up about it that it kind of sucked the joy out of it. Whereas this time I just went, okay, let's go July, December, scroll through Goodreads, ooh, I love that one, 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 and then sort of took it from there. So a much healthier way of doing things, I think. As I say, my books of the year I am going to do slightly differently because I think I could easily do just a list of God knows how many books that I loved, but they would all probably end up being fiction, and I do want to kind of get across that I don't just read fiction, even though it is mainly fiction, as we established with my reading stats, and I think it's important to talk about my favourite books that aren't fiction for the year. So what I am going to do is a Book Nook Oscars style thing, so I'll have things like best debut, best fiction, probably won't bother doing best sci-fi because I think I only read one, best poetry, best short story, best graphic novel, things like that. And yeah, so I'm going to do a few different categories, and then a few sort of wildcard categories as well, like best song, oh no wait. So yeah, that I will be doing in the week between Christmas and New Year's. Yes. Yes. So for me, only one more day of work before Christmas. I am very lucky that I have Christmas Eve off, but it's the last Saturday before Christmas tomorrow, so pray for all retailers, I think, would be appropriate right here. I'm just going to link down below again to my Be Kind to Your Retailers this Christmas video. My biggest plea, I think, that I'm just going to put in here is don't go shopping on Boxing Day. You don't need it. You do not need it. Whatever it is you're going shopping for on Boxing Day, you do not need. Maybe I'll do a little bit of that in one of my next videos as well, about how outrageous I think it is that as a society we expect places to be open late on Christmas Eve and Boxing Day anyway. So I am off. What are your books of the second half of 2017? You're probably maybe not doing it like that if you're not. Fair enough. Let's just talk good books in general. Have you done your sort of books of the year? Have you decided on your books of the year? Or are you waiting to see if anything slips in last minute? So, thanks very much for watching, guys, and you shall see me then. Bye-bye.